Whether intended or not, this hearing gives a platform to conspiracy theories and lies, and it's a destructive exercise that has no place in the United States Senate.
I am called to your purpose, Lord. Reveal your purpose to the Proud Boys. Use us to lift up this city, to save the people of this city. Don't let it die. Amen.
Amen! Show some motivation!
If you make me look like a jack, I'm gonna come for you.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna probably beat the you. Never me.
Is that a White Claw?
That is a White Claw.
White Claw! White Claw! Mango White Claw!
A lot of people assume that I'm here to protest Antifa and BLM, and that's probably the furthest thing from the truth.
It's about the Western world, Western nationalists, like we love America.
We believe in God and America and the Constitution. I love my country.
They started out with the right intent. I don't think they started protesting for no reason. Yeah, I mean, watching the knee on George Floyd's neck, I mean, that's like, that was f***ed up.
Did you support the initial Black Lives Matter protests?
I mean, I don't know. Actually, I want to cut this interview.
We wanted to just get police and law enforcement the tools that they need to combat these riots.
Do Proud Boys communicate with the police?
We do communicate back and forth.
We just want to keep our side of the street clean.
I understand sometimes when the left are like, oh, well, they're violent. It's because we make self-defense look like assault.
A warrior doesn't always need to use a sword. Sometimes you need a pen. Our pen is our iPhone and our memes.
I got kicked in the head, and my phone got thrown away and got kicked out of the rally.
And you're a 22-year-old student journalist.
Yeah.
You bitch!
They scream at me and they say, you're not real press. So I said, hey, I'm with the NPPA IWW. They heard Industrial Workers of the World and screamed socialism. And they start yelling, Antifa press, Antifa press. I'm press.
Your press. You guys are downtown throwing Molotov cocktails, and I'm the press.
And then all of a sudden this hand comes down and throws me to the ground.
They kept calling me Antifa press, and I was like, I'm just a journalist. And then they're like, well, if you're not an Antifa journalist, you're still Arab.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that. I mean, you're saying I'm putting out
Right.
information.
I can't sit by here and listen to this and say that this is not disinformation, this hearing today. This is getting information we have to take a look at to restore confidence in our election integrity. We're not going to be able to just move on without bringing up these irregularities, examining them, and providing an explanation and see where there really are problems so we can correct it moving forward. Senator Paul.
Mr. Chairman, I got to respond to that. I mean, you're saying I'm putting out information. Well, one, had nothing to do with this report.
You lied repeatedly.
I did not.
You lied repeatedly in the press when I was spreading Russian disinformation, and that was an outright lie, and I told you to stop lying, and you continue to do it.
Mr. Chairman, this is not about airing your grievances. I don't know what rabbit hole you're running down.
You
right
talked
now.
about Russian
going down rabbit
disinformation.
holes.
Senator Paul.
This is simply not what we're dealing
Senator Paul.
with. But, Mr. Chairman, you can't make these
Judge
false
Starr.
allegations and then dropping it there. That is why this
Senator
committee
Paul.
needs to return back
Good
to
star,
a
Senator Paul.
partisan things. This is terrible what you're doing to this committee and all the great work that you talked about.
It is what you have done to this committee.
I'm concerned that today's hearing will do more harm than good by confusing a few anecdotes about human error with the insidious claims the president has aired. The president and many of his supporters are, unfortunately, continuing their efforts to undermine the will of the people, disenfranchise voters, and sow the seeds of mistrust and discontent to further their partisan desire for power. Whether intended or not, this hearing gives a platform to conspiracy theories and lies, and it's a destructive exercise that has no place in the United States Senate. Deciding to move forward with this hearing is still dangerous. Elected leaders who are chosen by the voters to help uphold our institutions and democratic values spent weeks either turning a blind eye or parroting provocative rhetoric and false claims about this election.
Senator, have you congratulated Vice President Biden yet? Why not?
By not speaking out earlier, even though they knew it was wrong, that there was no evidence to support these claims and that this inflammatory rhetoric is harmful to our democracy, many elected officials gave the president and his supporters license to spread damaging lies about the election.
There was fraud in this election. I don't have any doubt about that. There was fraud. We just don't know the extent, and we don't know what the remedy would be when identified.
More than 50 post-election lawsuits filed by the Trump campaign have been dismissed or withdrawn, including by the United States Supreme Court, because there is simply no evidence to support these claims in a court of law. And despite the title of today's hearing, there were no widespread election irregularities that affected the final outcome. These claims are false, and giving them more oxygen is a grave threat to the future of our democracy.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election. Of that, I have no doubt.
Now is the time for American patriots who love this country to say enough is enough.
You made, in a single day of working at Dollar General, what it took one of your employees making minimum wage a whole year to make.
First, I would make sure that all our kids can get the education they need without the student debt of $1.2 trillion.
You know, I worked my way through college. I have to tell you, I'm offended by that argument, personally. And I have a lot of good friends who worked their way through college.
What was the tuition you paid at that point, Senator?
In current dollars, about exactly the same at that institution as it is today.
That surprises me because the real cost of tuition
in constant dollars
has soared.
In constant dollars.
Tuition has soared.
Agreed, so have wages.
No, wages have been stagnant. If you're a high school grad,
over that long period of time,
wages have been stagnant for 35 years.
I wasn't a high school grad, I had college education.
For 35 years now.
What do you think that the federal minimum wage should be, specifically?
Well, let's talk about the minimum wage. We've proven time and again that this is about jobs and about supply and demand for those jobs.
David, you did not answer my question, so let me ask it again.
What did you say?
You made, in a single day of working at Dollar General, what it took one of your employees making minimum wage a whole year to make.
So let me ask you again, do you believe that we should have a federal minimum wage? And specifically, what do you think it should be?
As I've said, this minimum wage is a job. If you increase minimum wage the way this president has done already, you do it unilaterally, you will kill jobs in this country.
Do you think that there should be a minimum wage at all? And if so, what do you think it should be set at?
Well, it's the law of the land. What I've said is that I don't believe that it's consistent with the problem that we have right now with employment. Dollar General is a perfect example. We created 20,000 jobs in about 4 years, and yet we outsourced all the product we sold in our stores. We get caught up in the inertia of looking at everybody the same way. Look at the backgrounds, look at the credentials. I mean, there's a high school graduate in this race, okay? I'm sorry, but these issues are so much broader, so complex. There's only one candidate in this race that's ever lived outside the United States. How can you bring value to a debate about the economy unless you have any understanding about the free enterprise system and what it takes to compete in the global economy?
Action and accountability are needed. The call to apologize or to be terminated for their actions should start with Reverend Dr. Linda Olson Peoples and their board members who all signed off on this.
Cutting through where they don't cut through there.
76 University.
Because so we have some people out here doing some things that shouldn't be doing. I'm not saying it is, but everybody's spooked. Okay? Yeah, so let's just find another spot to walk through there, okay? You gotta understand
we've had a lot of people breaking into houses over there.
Let's not say that and then walk away.
Nobody said it was you.
And I'm not telling you that you're wrong. And I'm not going to keep arguing with you about it. And you're trying to push this race thing that it's not. And I'm tired of hearing that. It has nothing to do with race. They just had their house broken into by somebody that came from the same direction that's fitting the same description.
I am disappointed that this community has been led down this path and then done so by an institution that should have high standing in this community, like a church, its boards, And even some of the newspapers and the groups that have reported on this incident without verifying any information other than what they had seen on social media or a post. Action and accountability are needed. The call to apologize or to be terminated for their actions should start with Reverend Dr. Linda Olson Peoples and their board members who all signed off on this, as well as the many social justice agencies who co-signed in this smear campaign without any more than a fourth-hand account of their encounter. This is all reckless, harmful, and a divisive approach to this incident and the way we are here in Charlottesville.
Mr. Brainerd, I did have a chance to read through your affidavit and look at the exhibits that you attached to the affidavit. And you allege that there are individuals who cast invalid ballots, and you believe the claim you're making is within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. So I did take a look at the exhibits you attached, and I do want to share with you some of the things that I found that appear to be incorrect to me. And I'll just address these in orders of the exhibit attached, and I'll just, in the interest of time, highlight the most notable things that I found. The first exhibit attached, Exhibit 2, is a list of folks who were registered to vote in Georgia and have subsequently registered to vote in another state. Right off the bat in your affidavit, you testify that you cleaned up the list for duplicate entries, yet on the very first page of the exhibit, there are 3 duplicate voters. So I am concerned about the duplicate entries that may not have been removed from the exhibits. On that same page, what I did was I just took the first 10 names that were listed that are alleged to no longer be a resident in the state of Georgia. Of those 10 names, I found 8 property tax records that shows the voter still lives at this current address listed under which they're registered in the state of Georgia. They claim homestead exemption on this home as their primary residence, and they pay property taxes on their homes here in the state of Georgia. These are 2020 records that I will be submitting to the committee for review. Of these 10 voters that I researched, I was able to reach one voter on the phone. The voter verified that both he and his wife still live at this address in the state of Georgia, and he has only voted in the state of Georgia. He has a lengthy voting history that I was able to pull as well. From this very same list of individuals, one individual is alleged to be registered in both Georgia and Arizona. I was able to confirm her registration in Georgia and match her voter registration to a property tax record to confirm that she still holds residency in the state of Georgia as her primary residence. I cross-referenced her with Arizona's database and in fact did find a voter with the exact same name, and they are exactly the same age. However, the voter in Georgia was born January 17th and the voter in Arizona was born on April 17th. The voter also has a very common name, and I subsequently just typed in her full name, first, middle, and last name. In the state of Georgia, 117 people share this name. according to White Pages. And in the state of Arizona, 54 people share this name. There was another similar scenario with another individual on that same list, registered allegedly in both Georgia and Arizona. Same first, middle, last name, but they have different birthdays. They're different ages. One is age 48, one is age 49. The voter in Arizona has not actually voted since 2016. I'm going to move ahead in the interest of time to Exhibit 4. And you mentioned this earlier, voters who, in your affidavit, you allege that voters are using PO boxes to register and disguise PO boxes as their residential address to cast invalid ballots. In this exhibit, I immediately recognize one of the addresses. It's right around the corner from which I live, and I have friends that live in this actual building. It's a condo building with units on top, and it happens to have a FedEx center in the bottom of the condo complex. I reached out to my friend that lives there and informed him that both he and his wife are listed on your exhibit as having committed voter fraud by trying to disguise their residential address as a PO box. He subsequently sent me a list of all the homeowners in that same complex, and I cross-referenced them with their voter registration to confirm they live there. And then I also looked on your exhibit, and every single person that owns a condo in that building that voted in this election has been accused of disguising their residency as a PO box. I found a similar scenario for an address that is also an apartment building with a FedEx center in the bottom of the building. I know exactly where that building is because I have friends who used to live in that apartment complex, and a simple Google search will show you in real time that that is a residential apartment building with a FedEx center underneath it. Now, for those two buildings alone, I've identified at least 70 individuals in the first building that are on this exhibit, having been accused of disguising their residential address as a PO box. And on the second list, there are at least 58 folks that are named for that specific apartment complex. In Exhibit 5, this is the list of people who have alleged to have voted twice, one in the state of Georgia and one in a second state. One of the very first names on that list happens to be our colleague, Representative Tyria Nolowitz's neighbor. So we simply picked up the phone and called Representative Nolowitz, and she called the voter. The voter is alleged to have voted in the state of Maryland and also in the state of Georgia. The individual has confirmed that he currently lives in Georgia and has never voted in the state of Maryland. He, in fact, has not been to Maryland in the last year at all. He does have a father with whom he shares the exact same name, a senior and a junior. In another scenario, I was able to find an individual who allegedly voted in Georgia and also in the state of Virginia. The voters share the exact same name and age, but they have different birthdays. The Georgia voter born June 14th, the Virginia voter born June 2nd. On the last, one of the voters on my list happened to be my constituent. I attempted to call her, was unable to reach her. So I actually just drove over to her house and talked to her and her husband yesterday afternoon. They've lived in Georgia their entire lives, have lived in that same house since 1985. They've never even been to the state in which they're alleged to have double voted. Earlier, Mr. Adams did testify that there are circumstances in which voters have the exact same name, first, middle, and last name, and the same birthday. Based on what I found, I'm led to believe that many of the names listed on your exhibits are erroneous. And these allegations are very serious allegations. You've alleged that these voters have committed a felony. When I picked up that phone and I called my friend and let him know he was on that list, he and his wife were very surprised to learn that their names have been attached to a federal lawsuit, and there have been no attempts to contact them to verify any of this information. So these voters, in fact, have no idea they're being accused of committing a crime in a public filing where both their names and their addresses are listed. And these voters are both Republican and Democrat. It's not a partisan list. So to be clear, there are many people who have been accused of committing felonies, and There are many common names in these exhibits: Smith, Williams, Johnson, Taylor, Davis, Miller. In some cases, as you admitted earlier, you use birth years. In some cases, birthdays. But did you use any more specific unique identifiers such as social security numbers or driver's license numbers that would have actually been able to prove that these people are not in fact the same people?
Okay. Quite a lot of questions there. First of all, I actually want to thank you for helping to raise issues to help better validate the data. It's only with strong scrutiny that we're able to be completely confident in our findings. So to answer some of your questions, first, we never used anybody's just birth year. It was always had to be a complete match. In fact, because the default date for so many birth dates is the 1st of the month or the 1st of January, whenever that's those components are missing, we actually excluded everybody that was born on the 1st of the month or January 1st for any of our matching. Second, you bring up the issue of duplicates. In the total number of 20,300, is it 12, I think, that is a completely dedupe consolidation of lists. While individuals might have had multiple NCOA records, we have a completely unique list of county and voter ID numbers. That totals 20,300. Regarding some of the other name issues that you've found and other issues that you've raised, as I mentioned, I'd be more than happy to address all of those. If you'd send them to me, I would give them an additional validation and scrutiny and get back to you on them.